Hi, everyone.
Hello.
A very good morning to my poet friends from Canada, United States of America, and Argentina. And a warm good evening to my poet friends from India. I'm Rachna Singh, editor and curator of The Wise Owl, a literary and arty magazine. Welcome to the Wise Owl Poetry Reading Session. As you know, we are kickstarting our anniversary celebrations with this session. Let me start by saying I'm absolutely delighted to have so many creative and innovative poets on our panel today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of the session. We were to have 8 poets for the session today, but Carl Shaworth was unable to join as he's participating in a marathon and is probably running even as we speak. But he has promised to be a part of our next session. Be that as it may, we have our very own magnificent 7 here today. So without much ado, let us dive into the session. I was intending to invite poets in alphabetical order of their names, but I've got a request from Sukrita Paul Kumar to bring her in early. So let's start the session with Sukrita Paul Kumar. I'll start by introducing her. She's a poet and critic. She was born in Kenya, and she was an invited poet and fellow at the prestigious International Writing Program, Iowa. She is former fellow of the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla and honorary faculty at Dural Center at Corfu, Greece. She has published several collections of poetry, translations, critical works, and has held exhibitions of her paintings. A multifaceted personality. She also held the Aruna Asif Ali Chair at the University of Delhi. Her latest collection of poems is Vanishing Words. The 2 poems she will be reading out for us here today are Across the River, and the second one will be Afterlife, which was in fact featured in our anniversary edition and was very well received and greatly appreciated by our readers. So Sukrita ji, the stage is all yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Rachna, for allowing me to be the first one so that I can leave. I'm actually on a wonderful program here at Bhopal, which is also full of festivities and poetry and art and literature. And I am also on duty here. At 8:30, I would be joining them over another program. So that is why the request.
No worries.
I'm going to read Afterlife first, my poem, which I wrote not too long ago, but I somehow want to try it out in reading for the first time, though it's been published by you. But this is the first time I'm giving a reading of the poem. Afterlife. One early morning, on the new leaf of a branch emerging from your favorite sunset pink, hibiscus plant, sat a baby butterfly, stunning and still, in the veranda, quiet and alert, as you were in your lifetime, nearly blind. In recent times, your ears always perked up. You were a happening person. The red Puro, beauty that it is, offers a glimpse of life after life. The next poem I want to read is Across the River. That one, the divine hanging bridge between you and me, the sacred waters below, satiated with the blue of the skies, flanking us both, our passions cut across the rapid waters of fulsome Ganga, and yet another, Lakshman Jhula, connecting the two shores over the jealous Ganga, frothing and rushing, leaving everything behind. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Those were beautiful poems, Sukrita ji, and beautifully rendered. Thank you so much. In fact, it's reminding me of my student days when we would, talk about Auden and what he said about poetry. He said it's a clear expression of mixed feelings. And that's what your poetry seems to be all about. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would now like to invite our next poet. And this time I'm reverting back to the alphabetical order of inviting the poets. And this time we have Daun Wright coming to recite her poetry. Daun Wright is also known as the Permissible Poet. She's a podcaster and a freelance creative writer. Dawn pens poetry that speaks to the heart of our being, while allowing each reader to reflect on their life's journey. Dawn's poetry has been published by Spillword, Agape, Spirit Fire, Medusa's Kitchen, The Wise Owl, and Between the Lines magazine. She resides in London as well as Ontario, Canada. And she will be reading out a long poem for us, which is entitled, What Is It? So Dawn, please go ahead. Dawn, I think your mic is muted. You'll have to unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes. Morning to everyone. I'm actually in London, Ontario, so Canada, and it's freezing up here, but we're going to do it this morning. Thank you for inviting me to join this. It's my pleasure. The poem is called, What Is It? What is it about my blackness that makes you uncomfortable? What drives you to touch me without permission? To mock my hair texture and natural styles, or deride the darkness of my skin tone outside, while sitting in the sun for a tan not easily obtained, the very thing for which you treat me with disdain? What is it about our black skin that leads to our arrest without proof, or proclaim our guilt long before the assumption of innocence, without proper probing being done, when IDing who we are fall from our trembling fingers, out of fear of catching shiny silver bracelets encircling our wrists rearward, like the crude shackles of long ago on slave ships, while bodies swayed to and fro, ships still present in our minds, in our souls, that lead to anger when retold. What is it about my blackness? Why we wait longer for care, only to be told there is none here? Though blood runs red through every vein, you're not our kind. You don't feel the pain. The brutality of such actions then and now, tame them first to be sold, aggressor and aggressive, truth be told. What is it about my black skin that makes you vulnerable and fearful when you've never met me? Holding tightly to that bag, still you don't know me, or cringe into the wall of an elevator when I walk in. I don't see you. and I don't care, while you drum up evil thoughts about me that leads nowhere. You are invisible, but I feel your stare. I am well dressed, you undress me with your eyes. I look shabby, you frown and recoil as if I sent you there. What is it about our blackness that causes you to crave its sultry glow, though it bellows to your senses that won't keep you in tow? This profile of hatred makes you wonder out loud, is this about skin? I really don't know. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks.
What a beautiful poem, Dawn. The final lines especially touch the heart of the listener, you know, especially that bit about this profile of hatred makes you wonder out loud. Is this about skin? I really don't know. That's really beautiful. And in fact, it reminds me of what Margaret Atwood said. She said, I don't think I solve problems in my poetry. I think I uncover the problems. And your poetry seems to be doing just that. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to hear you.
Thanks.
I would now like to invite our next poet, Jennifer MacBain Stephens. Hi, Jennifer. Good to have you on this panel. A short bio. Jennifer MacBain Stephens went to NYU's School of the Arts and now lives in Iowa, where she is landlocked. Her fifth full-length poetry collection, Pool Parties, is forthcoming from Unsolicited Press in 2023. She's also the author of 15 chapbooks. My, that's a great feat.
That's a record.
Yeah, absolutely. Her works have appeared in The Pinch, Cleaver, Dream Pop, Slant, and Grist. She also happens to be the director of the monthly reading series, Today You Are Perfect, sponsored by the non-profit Iowa City Poetry. Jennifer will be reading 2 poems for us today. One is Crust, Mantle, Core. And Jennifer says that this poem is her attempt to write about how much we need the earth, and also articulates her anxiety about climate change. And incidentally, this poem was published in one of our issues and was very well received. And the other poem she is going to be reciting is The Moon. This poem, she says, is inspired by the tarot card, the moon, which reveals ideas about duality, dreams, and the shadow self. So Jennifer, please go ahead. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Rachna. I'm really happy to be here, and I really enjoyed reading so much of the work in the Wise Owl Review. And it's wonderful to see all of your faces and how we can connect this way. So my first poem, I also wrote this. A good friend of mine, her parents lost their home in a fire in California a couple of years ago. And I think it really made me think about the quote you said about how poetry maybe shines light on problems, because I don't feel like I'm solving any problems either, but we write what we want to write. So, okay. Crust, mantle, core. There is a speck of grit in the earth's eye and in my eye. The sun is orange blur. Things far are harder to talk to, and the earth knows this. I see my lamppost, my breath, scorched farmland. I see cereal boxes still look the same, rectangles with color. Words offer prizes inside, wrapped in plastic. The earth cannot see people in airplanes waving at it. I see hair color we miss, what falls to the ground, the trash. Both the earth and I listen harder each day for the dancer to pop up in the music box. Won't our hearing become enhanced if we are visually impaired? Maybe this time she does not appear. There is a space between listening and blinking, sand and soothing, a squeezed, stopped heart and rushing blood. The earth never stops. Wool gathered responsibly and silk. There is a searching place that comes without seeing. Where are you, Earth? You've waited so long for us. Maybe that is the problem. Plummeted under this limbo stick at a random party, the song plays but is stuck in a loop. The earth too big to sashay away. We both scream in the hot steam from the sink. It's always hotter than you think. Oh, Earth, thanks for that. The earth and I fight our way out of the fire, wipe off the gray ash, face the glass-like indifferent sun. Okay, I'm going to read my second poem, The Moon, and I'm writing, several of these tarot deck poems, and you had mentioned the chapbooks, and I think that was just a result of when I'm really interested in something, I like to write a lot about that one subject. And so then you get a chapbook. The moon. My moon third eye can't keep me from tripping over roots. An original creation scares us. We write ourselves into this forest. We crave a run-in with the fawn, not the wolf. A newborn, an idea, a gyroscope turns into a bird, a face becomes a phone. If we look too closely, it turns back again. The moonlight is a hummingbird stinger. Too fast, it spells you. Too slow, you fall into a hole. Taste the monster's message under a blanket. Glowing and hard to attain, the moon witnesses my nightmares. The beast with claws, an ooze from his brain and body. The staircase that keeps falling away from under my feet above the city. I fall and wake up in a sweat, scraping the air with my fingers. The mansion where every closed door hides a demon wanting to suck out the inside of your mouth. How can these visions be a piece of me with the moon watching over, passive, beautiful like a small daughter, watching from the stairway, waiting for a story? The moon tries to save me one more time. The woods turn into witches' hands, cradling or menacing, sprinkle sugar over a cake. The witch digs herself out of the grave, tours me back to my beginning. It's why we showed up in these woods in the first place. Our dirt hour errors, communicating with the non-physical bodies of loved ones. They open and close their wings. They reach for my throat. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was lovely.
Rachna, excuse me. I just need to say goodbye.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you so much, Jennifer and Dawn, for your beautiful poetry. And excuse me the rest, Rupa, Santosh, Stephen, Pragya. It's so rude, but I have to go again on duty for poetry. Please excuse me.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you,
Rachna.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you. That was beautiful, Jennifer. Considering the fallout of climate change, your poem becomes very, very relevant, very, very contemporary. You've spoken about the fires in California, all a result of man's intervention in, too much of intervention, I would say, in nature cycles and ways. So thank you so much for pointing that out again in your poem. Our next poet comes with a distinctive Indian flavor. Her poems are based on characters from Indian mythology. So I would now invite Dr. Pragya Bajpai to read out her poems. Pragya is a mother, a poet, editor, artist, and central government officer serving on the Faculty of English at the National Defense Academy, Pune, India. She's a postgraduate from Lucknow University and holds a PhD in English literature from Banaras Hindu University. Pragya published her book, A Potpourri of Proverbs, poems based on 51 English proverbs. Sounds very interesting, in 2021. And she has co-edited 4 anthologies celebrating the armed forces. She's a widely published poet. The poems she'll be reading out for us today have been featured in the anthology titled Tapestry of Women in Indian Mythology, edited by Dr. Meenakshi Mohan. The 2 poems are Being Kunti. One is Being Kunti. Now, Kunti is a mythical character from the Mahabharata. And I guess the context Dr. Bajpai will give herself before she starts reading out her poem. And the second one is Lakshman's letter to Urmila. Now, these 2 characters are again from the Ramayana, and I would request Pragya to give a brief background for the benefit of our listeners. So go ahead, Pragya, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rachna ji, for having me here. It's such an honor to be among such esteemed poets. Thank you for the opportunity. So the 2 poems, as Rachna ji has already mentioned, are based on the mythical characters because these are 2 popular mythologies of India, and they help us understand life better and makes our life better because we delve into Indian tradition when we read it. And so that those are the classical ones. So I have chosen 2 strong women characters to recite my poems here. So the first one is Being Kunti. Kunti is a strong woman character, and she's a mother of Pandavas. So she's a mother of 5 children, 2 of which are sons of wife, the second wife of her husband. And they are all the major protagonists who stood for righteousness and fought the war against their cousins to keep the spirit of Dharma alive. So Kunti is a very inspiring mother and a strong character. So here I go. Kunti, the mother of 5, while raising the budding warriors equally with virtues sublime, plays her noble part. I try to find the source of strength of this single mother, hiding the highs and lows of life deep in her heart. I can't find the patch of land where she buried her weakness before emerging as a phoenix. Where did she conceal the pain of not being as fortunate as Madri? So Madri is the other wife of her husband. Where did she conceal the pain of not being as fortunate as Madri, in whose arms her man breathed last? What does it take to stay in love, despite knowing that consummation in marriage comes with a cost? Why didn't she too jump into the fire of her husband like Madri did to prove her passion? Is living alone to fulfill one's duty for greater good easier than dying in love? Is it easy to accept destiny in true spirit? Is it easy to be Kunti, the true form of Shakti? Thank you. So that was my first poem, Being Kunti. The second one I have chosen is my favorite character because my heart goes out to her when I think of her, because she spent 14 long years without her husband, away from her husband, when her husband had chosen to go on exile, and her husband chose to accompany her brother and perform his duty as her brother. And she deserves more credit than she has ever got in the mythology. So that is why I have chosen her as my next poem. Lakshman, the husband, Lakshman's letter to Urmila. So he writes a letter while he's away in the forest, in the exile, away from his wife. And here it goes. Oh, Urmila, as I catch a glimpse of my beloved Ram and Sita, in deep slumber, I fancy you in wonder. I remember your faith and your surrender. I hum a lullaby of love, longing, loss, for the winds to whisper in the ears of my sleeping queen, young and tender. My love is no less than Ram's love for Sita, though unspoken. My promises are delayed, but not broken. Keep the reality on hold. Build your dreams manifold. I will come back and fulfill them all. You are no less than a goddess for me as you perform your duty silently. Urmila, thy name is austerity and echoes in my soul. Your devotion fills my heart with strong emotion of disbelief. The story of my life is not complete. Without you, the solitude is bittersweet and devoid of meaning until we meet again. So the exile is not forever. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Pragya. We have strong women characters in Indian mythology, without a doubt, and our kudos to their strength and their courage. Thank you so much, Pragya, for reading out those poems, giving us a glimpse of the women in Indian mythology. I would now go to the next poet, and here I would like to invite Rupa Anand. Good evening, Rupa. Rupa Anand. Yeah, I'll just give a brief introduction. Rupa Anand is a spiritual seeker under the tutelage of an Advait teacher and a graduate in English literature from Lady Sri Ram College, University of Delhi. She first started writing free verse in 2008 and now dabbles in a bit of haiku and other related Japanese micropoetry. Her work has been published in Indian spiritual journals and international publications. She is an avid gardener, and Rupa says that she draws on her natural surroundings and daily interactions with the flora and fauna that inhabit the area where she lives. Her writing reflects this deep connection with nature. She says, I hope my poems will put you in touch with the beauty and calm of the natural world and show the interconnectedness of life. She's a cancer survivor and she lives in Delhi with her husband, daughter, and numerous cats. She will be reading out two poems for us. One is called The Sacred Tree and the other is called Footprints. Now, The Sacred Tree has a very interesting story behind its genesis. So would you like to elaborate on that, Rupa, or would you want me to?
As you wish, Rachna, you could. I've sent it to you, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just read out. There's a very interesting little story about how she happened to write this poem. So she says this poem was written in 2009, shortly after Rupa moved into her house that overlooks two parks. At the corner of one of the parks stood this huge, beautiful bale tree that was visible from the windows of her house. Its leaves were often taken to adorn her home when visiting swamis came home for satsang and puja. But suddenly one day, Rupa saw that the leaves were dropping and it was dying. She was deeply disturbed and she went out to investigate and found that the tree was dying due to fungus and rot. So, like a good citizen, she informed the forest department. She watched from the window with a painful eye as the men came and axed it down and took it away. She, however, kept a few of the heavy branches, which she converted into cedars in her garden. And thus the poem sprang forth. So that was a very sweet story, and I wanted to share it with all of you. And the other poem she's going to read out is a spiritual poem, which was written in 2012. And she says this is about not taking our life stories, our lives, and our individualities too seriously. So Rupa, please go ahead. We are waiting with bated breath for your poetry.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Rachna, so much for inviting me on this forum. And congratulations on the first anniversary, I believe, of the Wise Owl.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rupa.
All right. So I'll go ahead with the sacred tree.
Yeah.
The tree lived in a corner of the garden, roots firm and steady into the ground, trunk solid and upright into the sky, branches replete with leaves, boughs laden with fruit, heavy and green, giving shade to those who sat beneath, and offering bramble as fuel to urchins nearby. Bulbuls, mainas, parrots, and doves nestled amidst its cozy nooks. We took its leaves as an offering for our prayers. Bale, its pulpy fruit, nurtured friends and family alike. Then, quite suddenly, something happened. Its foliage, lush and green, turned dusty and wilted. Its bark, strong and sturdy, wrinkled and turned brown. Its fruit, ripe and sticky, shriveled and dried. Its roots, once healthy, turned rotten and moldy. Still, it stood, beautiful and resplendent, proffering whatever was left. Still, the bird sang atop its drooping boughs. I watched its glory fade with acceptance. I watched the tree men come with a hammer and axe. I watched its parts loaded onto a truck. I watched the space it once had filled, and I understood it was meant to be. It's called Shiva's tree. From that Shiva, it emerged, and in this world, it sustained itself and others too. Into that auspiciousness, it again returned. Beautiful, then, now, and forever. Let me light a lamp in its honor and its beauty. There is no difference between the tree and me. If at all you perceive any, it lies in outer form only. I understand that the English name for Bale is stone apple. I'm not too sure, but that's what Google told me. That's just a reference. Okay. I'll go on to the second poem now. And this is called Footprints. And this is during my active years of sadhana and meditation with the Chinmay Mission, New Delhi, under my teacher. I am a footprint in the sky, soft and pure, light and sure, neither here nor there, yet everywhere. No form I take, no sound I make, no lakes I swim, no hills I climb. Effortlessly I walk on clouds of everlasting, eternal time. No shoe I wear, free size I fare, pretty up to date, I dance and skate, On the rinks of space, my souls glide and race. Impishly I twirl and tread the skies. The wind drums up a steady beat. Not worn out by age or stress, I choreograph and dance bare feet. And all of heavens shuts its ears as silence rings its bell so loud. Carelessly I waltz and tiptoe fast amidst the sacred hallowed crowd. I linger, linger longingly, enjoying a ceaseless, steady trot. Catch me if you must, I say, though most likely you will not. Much as I would like to imagine otherwise, I am nothing but a glorious footprint in the sky.
Wow, beautiful. That was lovely.
Thank you.
So live every moment and enjoy life, be impish, and the world is your oyster, I guess. Yeah. So thank you so much, Rupa. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to have you on the panel. I would now like to invite our next poet. She's been waiting patiently. I know she's not been very well, so I'm sorry we kept you waiting for so long, Santosh. And this is Santosh Bakaya. She's a PhD, a poet, essayist, novelist, biographer, TEDx speaker, and has authored as many as 23 books from across different genres. Awesome, Santosh. Absolutely awesome. I mean, authoring 23 books, wonderful. And she also happens to be the winner of Ruel International Award for Poetry 2014 and Setu Award for her stellar contribution to world literature 2018. She has been acclaimed for her poetic biography of Mahatma Gandhi, Ballad of Bapu, which incidentally has been written in Limerick, and her biography on Martin Luther King Jr. Called Only in Darkness Can You See the Stars has also been critically acclaimed. Her latest book is Runcible Spoons and Pea Green Boats. She also writes a weekly column called Morning Meanderings in learningandcreativity.com. Santosh will be reading out 2 poems for our listening pleasure. One is called A War-Ravaged Boy's Hallucination. She's given me a short footnote to that, and it says that the poet believes that war can never be fair, and that this cruel and callous world needs to be won over by the antidote of love. And the second poem she'll be reading out is simply called Let Me Write a Poem, which was written on World Poetry Day this year, 2022, which also happens to be the International Down Syndrome Day. So Santosh, please go ahead. The stage is all yours.
Thanks a ton, the Wise Owl magazine, for this wonderful opportunity to rub shoulders with some wonderful poets. And Rachna, hats off to you for this. I don't know what to say. This is a gorgeous magazine. I'm in love with it. And happy congratulations, kudos. I doff my hat to all of you. Wonderful poets all. So the first poem that I'm going to read is The War-Ravaged Boy's Hallucination. One big fat idea sauntered into his mindscape, a hulk of an elephant in its habitat. Like a pachyderm vein, it roared, a maniacal edge to his voice, trumpeting its odious refrain. The tiny boy hunkered down under a tree. The tiny boy hunkered down under a tree, crumpled clothes, disheveled hair. Ah, war was unfair. A man in the distance fixed him with a menacing stare. He could hear bombs. Tears swelled in his eyes. The pachyderm roared, gore, gore, gore. Through tear-streaked eyes, he saw a boy being spanked with a willow switch. His lips twitched. Why all this beating, spanking, thrashing, bashing, teeth gnashing, kicking, neck picking? The pachyderm roared, gore, gore, gore. He saw a tiny, pigtailed girl tenderly kissing a shabby teddy bear, one eye missing. Soon, a rosy-cheeked cherub erupted from somewhere. He glared at the pachyderm as though it was some wild worm. The pachyderm roared, gore, gore, gore. The rosy-cheeked cherub bent down and wiped the boy's tears. He planted 2 kisses. He planted 2 kisses on the boy's cheeks and settled a score. The pachyderm could no longer roar. Thank you so much for this roaring. I had to roar because I'm not feeling too well.
Yeah.
And the second poem is, let me write a poem. Let me write a poem. Let me write that poem which will give that healing touch to those living on the fringe of society, the dispossessed. May my poetry pour love and compassion on special little angels and their extra special caretakers, hurling punches at all fork-tongued fakers. May these special folks teach me the poetry of love through their kindness. May they infuse my poetry with that rare healing touch. No, no, my poetry is not asking too much. My poetry yearns to be healed with the robust strength of your spirit, little angels. Brittle you definitely are not. Oh, perish that vile thought. Your grit and gumption can undoubtedly teach us a lot. With one stroke of the pen, let me remove all traces of racism, patriarchy, poverty, dishonesty, and establish humanism. Revive those dreams in dead eyes. Revive those dreams in dead eyes. Turn lingering sighs into never-ending smiles, mending broken tunes. Turn this dystopian world into a utopia where love croons. Let me write a poem. Let me write a poem. Let me write a poem that will darn the holes in the poor kid's socks from which cracked toes peep out in shame-faced doubt. Let my words shield him from life's cruel knocks. Yes, let me write a poem. Let me write a poem that will remove the tears from the face of her war-ravaged child and the sneer from the face of that demagogue self-styled. Let me write a poem. Let me write a poem. Let me write a poem that will make the mockingbird sing with full-throated ease. Yes, yes, give me those poetic devices, please. Yes, give me those poetic devices, please. Thank you so much.
That was beautiful, Santosh, and so beautifully rendered. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to hear you. And in fact, I suddenly remembered a line by Robert Frost. You know, he said, poetry is a way of taking life by the throat. I think you seem to have done just that. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. Our last poet in our magnificent 7 of today is Stephen Page. Stephen is part Native American. He graduated from Columbia University and Bennington College. He says he loves his wife, his godson, and long walks through woodlands. He's a person who believes in world peace and save the planet environmental practices. That is very commendable indeed. Stephen will be reading out 2 poems for us. The first is, Today is Matten's Birthday. This poem was in fact featured in the Jade edition of The Wise Owl and was very appreciated by our readers. And the second poem that he will be reading out is called Hen Eggs, a poem which was published in the San Diego Poetry Annual and later printed in his 3rd book, A Ranch bordering the salty river. Thank you for joining us, Stephen. Please go ahead.
Hello. How are you? Everybody,
all well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hear your poetry, yeah.
Okay. Yes. I have to say I really enjoyed all the poetry that I heard today. And I really liked the delivery of Santosh. She delivered very well. I like Jennifer's climate change focus. And Dawn, I first question I got was, what does the permissible poet mean? I love that. I love that, permissible poet. And also, I like your hair. So, anyways, before I read, I have to say that I have to quote Baudelaire when he said, "I is not me" in poems for any writing I make. But today is Martine's birthday. You say 13. My, how he has grown since the pandemic swept in. I wish I could see him, visit him, hug him, tell him how I love him. Everything has changed. I remember holding him when he was weeks old. I remember feeding him applesauce, pushing his stroller so he could see trees, so he wouldn't have to be inside all day and stare at his mother's back. I remember holding his hand and walking by houses to kindergarten. I taught him how to count, the alphabet, to differentiate colors, to enter the covered slide alone while I wait for him at the bottom to catch him. He was naturally well behaved, except for those terrible twos. I taught him how to box, defend himself physically and verbally, how to talk to girls. I see his face on video calls. He says he's okay, but the expression says depression. The variants have changed everything. All right, and this next poem is published in my third book, and it's called Hen Eggs. I wake up late in the morning, 10 o'clock, to the shouts of children in the living room. I feel like sleeping more, but stir and roll myself to stumble to the kitchen to pour my first cup of coffee. The smell is rich as bramble, but before I can sip into lucidity, the screams of my 3-year-old grandchild and 4 of her friends headache me to shower where I wash away last night's dream. I dress in backpack and ready to tramp to the woods to find the myth. But my wife, who is watching the kids, is called by the capitas to come look at the cows. So she asked me to babysit until she returns. I never asked to be a grandfather, nor responsibly a father, but here I am, married to a woman I love, a widow, a mother whose daughter who has children. I'm a grandfather by default. I watch a Disney movie and sing and march around the coffee table. I intervene when their tags become shoves. I board quickly. My wife enters the back door and I bolt out the front, not making 3 strides across the lawn before she yells and asks me to start the asado for her daughter and her son-in-law, who will arrive in 3 hours. I glance at the mottled trees at the edge of the wood, realizing how easy it would be for me to just say, no, I have to go to work. I have to do my myth finding. I set my backpack down on a white wooden bench and set fire to the kindling. 4 hours later, full of meats, wine, and exhaustion from bending over a grill, I drink a double espresso and ready myself to hike alone, to restart my day, to discover truths. But my oldest grandchild grasps my hand and pleads, "Please, take me to the pool, show me the chickens, walk with me." Her lake eyes large as sky. I walk with her, show her the covered pool, explain to her that it's too late in the year to swim. It's too cold. I walk past the reddening lawn oak, take her to the hen house, find a fresh egg that is still warm for her to carry back to her mother. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Stephen. A fitting way to conclude our poetry reading session today. But we are not done yet. We'll take a short breather, and then I just wanted a 5-minute session. I wanted to invite your comments about why you think, if you do, that serious poetry seems to be going out of fashion among the new generation. So I'll just share a short video clip about the Wise Owl. It's about 50 seconds, not too much of time. And then we'll come back and just have a 5-minute quick, interaction about why serious poetry seems to be dwindling. Please stay with me and we'll be back for the last leg of the session. I'll just share the screen for the short video clip. And so now let's talk about something that's been bothering me for a bit. The fact that serious poetry no longer seems to be the flavor of the day or the month or the year for the new generation. Do you think so? And why do you think that is the case? Would anybody
Good question. I don't know. I know that I have heard and read that people used to read poetry every day in the newspapers, but that was a long time ago, before my time, and I have no idea why. I think the arts in general, poetry being the most artistic of the writing practices, is going out of fashion. People don't go to the theater. People don't go to the opera. That's my input. It's just something that it's been going to trend, and maybe it has something to do with the internet. I don't know.
Okay.
Anybody have input on that?
What about Santosh?
Yes, I would just like to point out that the youngsters, they use these short terms and part of it I don't understand, and things of that sort. This is inserted into poetry, which is beyond me. Maybe I'm growing old. I don't understand that. And then there are grammatically challenged poems, and then praise to the sky, syntactically challenged poems, and they write that. And on the other hand, I have come across many breathtakingly beautiful poems written by the youngsters. They are writing very, very serious poetry and very, very sensitive poetry too. So that is the two types of poetry that I come across. Some which are, sorry to say, which are sheer nonsense, and the other, there is very, very sensitively written poetry by the youngsters.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Pragya, would you like to go? Oh, okay. I think it's something to do with the disciplines that you take on in college. In my time, arts was the flavor of the of what we did when it was a no-brainer. We all did English honors. We all just got up but my daughters were rather surprised. I have two daughters. One is around 40, the other is around 38 or something, and they never took up literature. And I was a bit taken aback. And this was the time of science, of commerce. So I think it's a shift there, possibly. I'm 68, so my generation all went to college. And I mean, I don't know. We all did history, we all did philosophy, we all did English. And I think that's got something to do with it. Having said that, both my daughters are interested in art. One writes, she lives in Canada. The other one watches the opera. She's very serious about all this stuff. So I think it's just, I don't know. I'm just sharing something which is very personal to me, which is in my environment, which is in my family. But you're right when you say that youngsters are not, because in all the forums that I'm on Facebook, all of them seem old. We're all old. Suddenly we're all writing poetry. What's happened? You look at them and I say, oh God, 75, 85, 80, 60, all white hair. It's like, you're right, possibly, when you say that. But I think there's a lot of regional poetry coming out. In haiku, Rachna, there is this guy called Daipaya Nair. You possibly know him. I mean, I'm shocked. I'm learning, and to what he writes, he's a great observer of life and of Indian life.
Right.
And I'm shocked. I mean, he comes up with startling juxtapositions. He says something and then he goes to his grandmother's bindi and the papad and the I don't it's quite amazing. So I think it's a mix. I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah. Yes. Pragya, Dawn? You want to say something?
I think there is a shifting of the way people view art, because one perspective is, those of us who are older, we journal and then we move into the poetry phase, and we would go to art galleries and museums, and we would appreciate the creative aspect of what life offers. But now the shifting is, it's more content creating, influencing, and stuff like that. So the time to actually read a book or sit and write it's few and far between. But you still have those who are, like we would call them, old souls, who will go to the journals and who will still produce stuff. So it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, I think, but it's definitely not on the radar as it used to be back then.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dawn. Pragya?
Yeah, I think Dawn has already covered that area which I wanted to touch upon, and I totally chime with her, because that's true. Even I have realized, like, my children are also into content creating, so they are more into audio-visual creation of poetry, because their attention span is less, and they are now the new generation is more tech savvy. They have they feel the need to finish the things very fast, so they want to just squeeze everything in 30 seconds. So everything is encapsulated in audio-visual mode. And also it has become more of personal thing, instead of fantasizing and visualizing things from everybody's perspective. they try to see from their own perspective. They feel that they need to be heard, they need to be seen, they want to show their perception more. Probably that is why they are into content creating and having more following. So it's absolutely a paradigm shift, and the poetry is not so serious because they want to say everything in just few words. So that is why tanka and haiku and these forms of poetry is coming up. It is taking a better shape, more than lengthy and serious stuff. Probably that could be the way of life for them.
Yeah.
No.
I just wanted to, to hop in and sort of piggyback on that. What Pragya and John said is, in Iowa City, we just had a spoken word festival that had, very serious poetry on stage, and, that was very, very well received. And on Sunday, I'm actually going to a reading where there will be a bunch of students who are reading poems that start with Dear City. And so they're writing poems to their city about, things they like, things they don't like, things that they want to see changed. So I think maybe even if the medium or how we express ourselves is different, I'm excited to see that people are still getting their voice out there, whether it's on TikTok or, on Mic Check Festival or, or a 2-minute video. So I think it's there. I think maybe just the medium is changing a bit, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So that's right. So one common thread that seems to be emerging is that there is poetry, but not the traditional form of poetry that we've been used to. It's more through maybe brief forms of poetry, as you mentioned, haiku, and through audiovisual channels.
Yeah.
So which means there is hope for poetry yet, which is a good point to go back with. And I guess we need to think about it a little bit. So we will end the session on this optimistic note. Big thanks to all of you for being a part of this panel. Hope to see you all again soon. Goodbye and take care.
Bye.